I used to believe that trust didn't break loudly. No screaming, no slammed doors, no dramatic confessions in the rain. I thought betrayal would announce itself. I was wrong. It arrived quietly, disguised as a normal Wednesday morning. At 7:30 a.m., my fiancé kissed me goodbye like he always did. Quick, familiar, absent-minded. He smelled like coffee and his usual cologne. He told me he couldn't talk much that day. Back-to-back meetings, budget reviews, executive pressure, the usual corporate misery. "Don't worry about me," he said, already halfway out the door. "I'll survive." I believed him. 5 years together, 8 months engaged, a wedding planned for next spring. We had routines, shared calendars, shared locations, shared jokes that no one else found funny. I thought we were solid in that boring, dependable way people envy without realizing how fragile it actually is. At 11 a.m., his boss called. That was the moment the ground shifted, just slightly at first, like your body noticing imbalance before your mind catches up. She asked me gently whether he was okay. She said he had called in sick, food poisoning. My brain stalled, like a car refusing to start, because I had watched him leave for work. Laptop bag, coffee tumbler, confident stride. Meetings until 6, he'd said. I hung up the phone and sat very still. Then I opened the Ring app. We'd installed the cameras after a package theft, nothing dramatic. Just precaution. Front door, driveway, clear resolution, no blind spots. I scrolled back. 7:30 a.m. There he was, leaving exactly the way I remembered. 7:45 a.m. A black BMW pulled into our driveway. I didn't recognize the car. I recognized the way my stomach dropped. A woman stepped out, tall, well-dressed, not rushed, comfortable, like someone who belonged there. And then my fiancé came back outside. Different clothes, a weekend bag in his hand. They kissed. Not a mistake kiss, not confusion, not hesitation. They kissed like people who had done this before. I watched it 3 times, hoping my eyes would correct themselves. They didn't. That was when I realized something terrifyingly calm. He didn't forget me. He didn't slip. He didn't panic. He planned. And in that moment, while my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, I made a decision that would detonate everything by nightfall. I wasn't going to confront him in private. I was going to let the truth walk into the room on its own. When I think back now, what scares me most isn't that I missed the signs. It's that there weren't many to miss. We didn't meet in a dramatic way. No spilled drinks, no grand gesture. Just 2 people introduced by mutual friends at a low-key dinner, sitting across from each other, talking about work and laughing a little longer than necessary. He was attentive without being intense, funny without trying too hard. Safe. I remember thinking that word specifically, safe. After years of chaotic dating, men who disappeared mid-conversation or treated commitment like a personal attack, he felt grounded, predictable, reliable. He texted back. He showed up on time. He remembered things, my coffee order, my deadlines, the way I hated mornings but loved quiet ones. We built a life slowly. 5 years doesn't arrive all at once. It accumulates. A toothbrush left at my place, a drawer that became his, a shared grocery list, arguments that ended in compromise instead of explosions, vacations that weren't flashy but comfortable, Friday date nights that became sacred through repetition. When he proposed, it wasn't extravagant. No crowd, no cameras, just us, sitting in our living room after dinner. He got nervous halfway through and laughed at himself. His hands shook when he opened the box. I cried. I thought it meant something, that he was choosing me not out of excitement, but intention. 8 months into our engagement, our life looked exactly how I thought adult stability was supposed to look. Shared location for safety. Shared calendar to stay connected. We talked about kids in vague, future tense ways. We argued about paint colors and guest lists. We planned a wedding that everyone called perfect. His family embraced me fully. Every Wednesday night, rain or shine, we had dinner at his parents' house. His mother treated tradition like religion. Same time, same table, same lasagna recipe. She introduced me to neighbors as my future daughter-in-law, with visible pride. I felt folded into something permanent. Looking back, I realize how deeply I trusted the routine. Routine has a way of numbing your instincts. When things repeat without consequence, your guard lowers. You stop asking questions because nothing has ever required answers. If he was late, there was a meeting. If he was distracted, there was stress. If he needed space, there was work. And he was good at explaining things before I needed to ask. That's the part people don't talk about enough. How manipulation doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like anticipation. Preemptive reassurance. Stories told so smoothly they feel like truth simply because they arrive early. There were no explosive fights, no obvious distance, no sudden coldness. We laughed the night before everything collapsed. We talked about the menu for our wedding tasting. He teased me for overthinking the seating chart. He fell asleep next to me like a man with nothing to hide. That's why Wednesday morning felt so normal. That's why I didn't question the kiss goodbye. Why I didn't notice the weight of his bag. Why I believed his words without hesitation. Trust doesn't shatter in the past. It breaks in hindsight. And once it does, every memory rearranges itself. Same moments, new meaning. The worst part isn't realizing you were lied to. It's realizing how carefully the lie was built to look exactly like love. There's a strange period before everything breaks where nothing is wrong enough to justify suspicion, but nothing is entirely right either. At the time, I told myself that relationships didn't need to feel electric all the time, that stability was quiet, that comfort didn't announce itself with fireworks. I repeated those thoughts whenever something felt slightly off. He'd started guarding his phone, not dramatically, not in a way you could point to and accuse, just small adjustments, screen angled away, notifications silenced more often. If I asked who texted, he answered easily, always had an answer, always reasonable. Work had become his favorite explanation. Longer hours, sudden deadlines, conferences I didn't attend because it was all panels and networking, you'd be bored. He said it casually, like he was doing me a favor. I believed him. He also became oddly intentional about reassurance. Compliments slipped into conversations where they didn't quite belong. You're amazing, you know that? I don't say it enough, but I really appreciate you. I'm lucky to have someone so understanding. At first it felt good, then it felt strategic. There were moments, tiny, almost forgettable ones, where I'd catch him watching me, like he was checking whether I was still where he'd left me emotionally. Still calm, still trusting, still in place. Once I noticed a hotel key card in his jacket pocket while doing laundry. I held it between my fingers longer than necessary. Conference room access, he said without missing a beat when I asked. They use key cards now. He laughed lightly, kissed my forehead, and thanked me for doing laundry. I remember feeling embarrassed, for doubting him. Another time, he came home unusually energized after a brutal workday. Not drained, not annoyed, bright, relaxed, almost buoyant. He noticed my look and said, "What? Am I not allowed to have a good day?" I smiled and dropped it. We shared locations. His idea, months earlier. Just in case, he'd said. Safety. I rarely checked it. Trust makes you lazy. But once, out of boredom, I glanced. His dot lingered somewhere unfamiliar for longer than expected. When I mentioned it casually, he said, "Oh yeah, client site, forgot to tell you." That was the pattern. I didn't catch lies. I caught explanations. Everything had context. Everything had logic. Everything slid neatly into place just before it could raise alarm. Even his family reinforced it without meaning to. His mother praised his work ethic constantly. He's under so much pressure. His sister joked about him being married to his job. Everyone normalized his absence, his stress, his need for space. And I normalized it too, because the alternative would have required questioning the man I was about to marry. The truth is, I didn't want to look too closely. Engagements have momentum. Once plans are in motion, venues booked, deposits paid, families invested, it feels irresponsible to pause over vague discomfort. You convince yourself that doubt is just nerves, that cold feet come with expensive shoes. The last warning came the week before that Wednesday. I asked him, half joking, "You're not having some secret second life, are you?" He didn't laugh right away. It was just a second, barely measurable. Then he smiled. What would I even have time for that? I laughed too. That pause stayed with me longer than it should have. But not long enough to stop what was already moving toward me. Because the thing about seeds is that by the time you notice them, they've already been planted. Tonight was Wednesday. Family dinner. Every single week. And suddenly, the shape of what needed to happen became very clear. I downloaded the footage to my phone, both angles. The kiss was especially sharp from the driveway camera. Timestamp visible, impossible to deny. Then I did something that surprised even me. I went about my day. I answered emails, took calls, responded to his texts with the same supportive tone I always used. Hang in there. You've got this. I played my part perfectly. At 4 o'clock, I called his mother. Would it be okay if I brought my laptop tonight? I asked lightly. I wanted to show everyone the vacation slideshow from his birthday trip. She loved the idea. By the time he texted that he was finally done and heading home to change, my hands were steady. He walked in at 6:15, glowing in a way that didn't match the day he claimed to have had. Hair perfect, skin flushed, not a trace of illness. Tough day? I asked. Destroyed, he said. I need wine and my mom's lasagna immediately. At dinner, he performed beautifully. Complained about work, laughed at the right moments, accepted sympathy like it was owed. After the main course, his mother turned to me. Didn't you have something to show us? I stood, laptop in hand. Oh, before the vacation photos, I said calmly. I wanted to show you something interesting from our security cameras today. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Then the footage played. The room went silent. The BMW, the change of clothes, the kiss, the overnight bag. When the screen went dark again, no one spoke. Not until I did. This was this morning, I said evenly. 7:45 a.m. And just like that, the life I thought I had detonated in front of everyone who mattered most. The silence after the video ended was louder than any argument we'd ever had. No one reached for their fork. No one cleared their throat. The air felt thick, like the room itself was holding its breath. He went pale, not embarrassed pale, but hollow, like all the blood had drained out of him at once. His mouth opened, then closed again. His hands hovered over the table, unsure where to land. I can explain, he said finally, voice cracking just enough to sound rehearsed. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. There's more, I said calmly. That was when his mother gasped, a sharp, involuntary sound. His brother swore under his breath. His sister stared at him like she was seeing a stranger sit in his chair. I pulled out my phone. At 8 o'clock this morning, I continued, you called in sick to work. Food poisoning, according to your boss. I lifted my eyes then, met his. But you texted me all day about meetings, budget reviews, executives. His jaw trembled. And here, I said, swiping once more, is where you actually were. I showed them the location history, the waterfront hotel, the dot that never moved. His brother stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. What the hell is this? He demanded. Who is that? He finally broke then. Tears spilled over, messy and sudden, his composure unraveling in real time. Her name is Adrian, he said, barely audible. We met at a conference 3 months ago. 3 months? His sister snapped. You're getting married in 5. I felt strangely distant from the conversation, like I was watching it through glass. My heart was racing, but my voice stayed steady when I spoke. Or we were, I said, before this morning. His mother turned on him then, sharp and cold in a way I'd never seen. In my house, she said, voice shaking with fury, you bring this woman into our lives every week. You let us plan your wedding, and you cheat on her? Mom, please, he sobbed. Don't do this here. Don't what? She shot back. Don't hold you accountable? He turned to me, face blotchy now, desperation pouring out of him. Can we talk about this privately? I finally looked at him. You humiliated me privately for 3 months, I said quietly. You can be humiliated publicly for 3 minutes. His sister-in-law clapped. Just once, soft, sharp. He flinched. I want to fix this, he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it back before he could touch me. It was a mistake. I shook my head. Calling in sick wasn't a mistake, I said. Changing clothes wasn't a mistake. Packing an overnight bag wasn't a mistake. Those were choices, repeated ones. Where am I supposed to go? He asked weakly. This is my home too. I inhaled slowly. My name is on the mortgage alone, I said. Your credit wasn't good enough to co-sign, remember? His father, who had been silent until then, stood. Go to your room, he said. I'm not 12, he snapped. Go to your room. He went, crying, stumbling, broken in a way that didn't move me the way it once would have. When he was gone, his father turned to me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. This isn't how we raised him. I know, I replied, and I meant it. His mother was already canceling vendors, fingers flying over her phone. He'll pay the cancellation fees, she muttered. This is unforgivable. I packed up my laptop. I should go. She stopped me, pulled me into a fierce hug. You're always welcome here, she said, with or without him. When I got home later that night, his car was already gone. He was upstairs, throwing clothes into suitcases. I'll stay with my sister, he said without looking at me. Leave your ring and your key on the counter. He hesitated. Please, can we just talk? We can talk through lawyers, I said. That was the first time fear truly crossed his face. And it was the moment I knew I wasn't reacting anymore. I was reclaiming control. The entitlement didn't wait a full night. It arrived early the next morning, sharp, indignant, wrapped in moral outrage, like I had committed some great injustice by refusing to quietly absorb what he'd done. At 8:02 a.m., my phone buzzed. A wall of text, paragraph after paragraph about how I had ambushed him, how showing the footage at family dinner was a violation of his privacy, how humiliating him in front of his parents was cruel, unnecessary, and, his favorite word, illegal. My lawyer says you can't record someone without their consent, he wrote. You violated my rights. I stared at the screen, oddly calm. Then I forwarded the message to a friend of mine who worked as a paralegal. He responded with a laughing emoji. Your house, your cameras, clearly visible. He lives there. He had knowledge. Tell him good luck. At 9, his audacity escalated. Adrian called me. Actually called me. I watched the phone ring for a full 10 seconds before answering, more curious than angry. Hey, she said, far too comfortable. We need to talk, woman to woman. No, I replied, we really don't. I didn't know he was engaged, she rushed out. He told me you were basically separated, living like roommates until the lease was up. I laughed once, short, incredulous. Cool story, I said. Still don't care. I'm trying to apologize. To who? I asked. Not me. You owe me nothing. He owes me everything. Lose my number. I hung up. At 10, his mother called. Her voice was tired, careful. He wants to come by and pick up some things, she said gently. Personal items. He got his things last night, I replied. If he forgot anything, he can send a list. I'll box it up and leave it outside. She hesitated. He also wants to discuss the car. What situation? I asked. The car is in my name. I'm keeping it. A pause. I warned him, she sighed. He says you're being cruel. He had another woman in my driveway at 7:45 in the morning, I said evenly. The cruel ship has sailed. She didn't argue. By noon, he showed up at my workplace. Security called me down. I need to talk to you, he said as soon as I stepped into the lobby. His eyes were red, his voice shaky, public enough to perform. You won't answer my calls. At my job? I asked quietly. Really? This is harassment, I continued. You need to leave. I have a right to my things, he insisted. My car, my home. You have a right to nothing, I said. The house is mine. The car is mine. You were a guest who overstayed. He started crying, loudly, dramatically. People stared. Security shifted uncomfortably. He's stealing from me, he wailed. I pulled out my phone. Showed the guard the footage. He cheated, I said simply. We broke up. He has no legal claim. The guard's expression changed immediately. Sir, he said firmly, you need to leave or I'll call the police. He left screaming that it wasn't over. At 6, the smear campaign began. Social media posts flooded in, carefully vague, emotionally charged, dripping with victimhood. When you give someone 5 years of your life and they throw you away over a misunderstanding. Survivor, not victim. Healing from narcissistic abuse. The comments poured in. You deserve better. His loss. King behavior, leaving a toxic relationship. I posted once. A screenshot. The kiss. Timestamp visible. Caption. Misunderstanding. 7:45 a.m., the day he called in sick. His post disappeared within the hour. By Friday, a lawyer's letter arrived, demanding 6 months to vacate my house, transfer of my car, half the value of the engagement ring for emotional damages, tens of thousands for contributions. My response, through my attorney, was brief. He had no legal standing. Conditional gift, no marriage, no ring. Month-to-month tenant, eviction pending. Counteroffer, vacate immediately. That night, his sister called. He's spiraling, she said. He quit his job. I closed my eyes. He thinks if he's desperate enough, you'll take him back. That's not how consequences work, I said. By Saturday, the messages turned unhinged. 73 texts between 2 and 6 in the morning. I hate you. Please take me back. Adrian dumped me. You ruined my life. I'll do anything. I love you. You'll never find someone like me. I screenshot everything. Then I blocked him. He showed up that afternoon with a U-Haul. And Adrian. They left with nothing. Because escalation only works when the other person still feels guilty. I didn't. The quiet didn't come immediately. At first, there was still noise. Legal emails, forwarded screenshots, notifications I muted instead of deleting. Even after I blocked him, the aftermath echoed everywhere. Friends checking in, his family apologizing, people whispering my name with sympathy that felt too heavy to carry. Then, slowly, the noise faded. And that's when it hit. The anger that had kept me upright finally loosened its grip. The adrenaline drained. The satisfaction of standing my ground evaporated. What remained was something colder and far more dangerous. Grief. Not the dramatic kind. No sobbing on the floor. No screaming into pillows. Just absence. The house felt wrong. Too quiet. Every room still held the shape of a life that no longer existed. His empty side of the closet, the indentation on the couch where he always sat, the coffee mug he favored, still in the cabinet because throwing it away felt like admitting finality. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, not just the betrayal, but the years. 5 years reduced to a highlight reel of lies I hadn't recognized in real time. I questioned myself relentlessly. How did I miss it? Was I too trusting or just convenient? Had I been loved or merely useful? There's a specific cruelty in realizing that someone didn't just hurt you. They used your faith in them as camouflage. I stopped answering texts, stopped going out. Food became optional. Sleep came in short, fractured stretches. My heart would race for no reason at all. Sudden panic triggered by nothing more than a passing car that sounded like a BMW. One night I opened the Ring app again. I don't know why. The footage was still there. The kiss, the overnight bag, the timestamp that had detonated my life. I watched it again, not because I doubted it, but because some part of me needed to remember why I couldn't soften, why I couldn't miss him without context. And yet, I did. That was the part no one warned me about. You can know someone is wrong for you. You can know they lied. You can know leaving was the only option. And still mourn the version of them you thought was real. I cried that night for the first time since everything happened. Quietly. Alone. Not for him, but for myself. For the woman who had believed stability meant safety. For the future I had planned so carefully, only to watch it collapse in HD. The next morning, his mother called. Her voice sounded older. He tried to come by the house last night, she said softly. I stopped him. He's not well. Something twisted in my chest. He's facing consequences, I said, even as doubt crept in. That doesn't mean I caused them. I know, she replied quickly. I just wanted you to hear it from me. You didn't ruin him. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. This was the danger point. The moment where guilt disguises itself as compassion, where loneliness whispers that maybe it wasn't that bad, where silence tempts you to rewrite history just to fill the space. I could feel myself standing at the edge of that cliff, one message away from reopening a door I'd fought so hard to close. That night, a letter arrived. Handwritten. 8 pages. He forgave me. I laughed out loud. Then I shook, because if I hadn't already been rebuilding my spine, that letter might have broken me. Instead, it became the proof I needed. The dark moment wasn't losing him. It was almost losing myself again, out of habit. The turning point didn't arrive with fireworks. It came with paperwork. A thin envelope slid under my door one morning. Legal letterhead, crisp edges, the kind of thing that looks official enough to make your stomach tighten before you even open it. He was escalating again. Injunctions, claims, accusations that I was illegally evicting him, that I'd converted his property, that I was punishing him out of spite. Old me might have panicked. This version of me opened a folder. Inside were receipts, mortgage documents, title records, bank statements, screenshots, time-stamped footage. Everything I had calmly, methodically kept while he spiraled. At the hearing, he sat 2 rows ahead of me, shoulders hunched, eyes darting. Adrian was beside him, close enough to touch, far enough to deny intimacy. When the judge asked who she was, he said, "Emotional support." I didn't react. The judge flipped through the file slowly, asked a few questions, then looked up. "Your name is not on the lease," she said to him. "No." "You did not purchase the furniture?" "No." "The vehicle?" "No." Silence. "Then you have no claim," she said. "Petition denied." Just like that. No speech, no sympathy, no room for reinterpretation. Outside the courtroom, Adrienne tried to corner me. "Can you just give him the car?" she asked, exhausted. "I'm tired of driving him everywhere." I met her eyes. "You can buy him one," I said. "Oh, right." I walked away before she could respond. That afternoon, the final illusion shattered. The Ring camera notification came through while I was at work. Motion detected, back door. I opened the live feed. There he was, credit card in hand, bent low, trying to jimmy the lock like this was a bad movie. I didn't hesitate. I called the police. By the time I arrived home, he was in handcuffs on my lawn, rage and disbelief battling across his face. His mother stood a few feet away, crying, not for him, but because she finally understood something she'd been refusing to see. I'm done, she said quietly to me. I can't keep protecting him from consequences. The restraining order followed quickly. Community service, charges, a 100-yard boundary that felt like oxygen. A week later, the car vanished. I reported it stolen. They found it at Adrian's parents' house within 2 hours. Both arrested. That was the moment the power fully shifted. Not because I won, but because I stopped reacting. I was no longer responding to chaos. I was enforcing reality. His messages stopped. His family stopped asking me to soften. Even I stopped asking myself why. I repainted the house, changed the furniture, moved things, claimed space that had once felt shared but now felt mine. A friend moved into the spare room, laughed loudly, paid rent on time, brought peace instead of tension. And one evening, sitting alone on the couch with the windows open, I realized something had changed. I wasn't bracing anymore. I wasn't waiting for the next message, the next escalation, the next emotional ambush. The truth had done its work. The turning point wasn't when he lost everything. It was when I stopped losing myself trying to explain why he should. The fallout didn't explode. It eroded. Slowly, publicly, irreversibly. By the time the legal dust settled, there was very little left of the life he'd tried to protect with lies. His job was gone. Quietly at first, then officially. His boss didn't call me again, but I heard through his sister that the truth had circulated faster than any rumor ever could. Calling in sick to cheat doesn't age well in an office that tracks calendars and receipts. He moved back into his parents' house. At 29. That detail alone did more damage to his ego than anything I could have said. His mother invited me to Sunday dinner. Not him. She didn't ask if I was comfortable with it. She just stated it, like a boundary she'd finally learned to hold. He's not welcome until further notice, she said flatly. I'm too disgusted to look at him. At the table, his father poured me a drink and asked how I was holding up. I surprised myself by answering honestly. It still hurts, I said, but the anger is louder than the sadness right now. They nodded. His brother pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots, posts he'd made, comments he'd liked, messages he'd sent people behind my back. All attempts to rewrite the story into something where he was misunderstood instead of unfaithful. I showed them the receipts. No one defended him. The next week, his attorney tried again. Another letter, another demand, another attempt to exhaust me into compliance. My response didn't change. No standing, no claim, no negotiation. Then came the rock bottom. He showed up at my house one afternoon while I was at work, forgetting, apparently, that cameras still existed. Tried the back door again. This time more frantic, less methodical. The police arrested him for attempted breaking and entering. His mother had to bail him out. That was the day she stopped answering his calls. A few days later, Adrian dumped him. By text. The message was forwarded to me by his sister from her phone. This is too much drama. You said you had money and stability. You're broke, unemployed, and facing charges. We're done. I didn't reply. I laughed. Then I sat very still, letting the finality of it all settle into my bones. He tried reaching out again, from new numbers, borrowed phones, email accounts I blocked as soon as they appeared. The messages shifted tone constantly. Apologies, accusations, nostalgia, threats. I documented everything. I didn't respond to a single one. The restraining order held. The silence grew. His sister called one evening. They're making him get therapy, she said, and a job, or he's out. Good, I replied. That's accountability. The engagement ring came back to me legally, exactly as the law intended. Conditional gift. No marriage. No claim. My grandmother laughed when I handed it to her. Next time, she said, pick better. The wedding deposits were another story. His mother sued him in small claims for the money she'd lost canceling vendors. She won. He owed her $8,000 he didn't have. By then, the humiliation was complete. Working minimum wage, living with parents, 2 arrests on record, debts stacked neatly behind him like evidence of a life poorly managed. Meanwhile, my house changed. I painted the walls, replaced the couch, bought plants that didn't remind me of compromise. A friend moved into the spare room, quiet, respectful, uncomplicated. The house breathed again. One afternoon, I ran into Adrian at a bar. She tried to apologize. Again. I didn't know he was that unstable, she said. You knew he was engaged, I replied. She blinked, confused. Yeah. I shook my head. Can't fix stupid. I walked away. By then, the story had stopped being about him. The fallout wasn't something I survived. It was something he did. And all I did was stop protecting him from it. It's been 6 weeks since that Wednesday morning. Long enough for the adrenaline to fade. Long enough for the noise to settle. long enough for me to tell the difference between healing and just being distracted by chaos. I'm not over it, but I'm not drowning anymore either. Some days are easy. Some days I still flinch when my phone buzzes unexpectedly. Trust doesn't reset just because the truth won. I've canceled 2 first dates because my chest tightened for no logical reason, and that's okay. Recovery isn't linear, it's cautious. It's allowed to be. The house feels different now. Not empty, honest. I kept the cameras. They catch deliveries, the occasional raccoon, sunlight shifting across the driveway. No more lies leaving at 7:45 with overnight bags. His family still invites me to dinner. You're more family than he is at this point, his father said once, half joking, fully sincere. His mother told me recently that he asked if I'd consider couples counseling. I laughed. Then I said no. Not out of bitterness, but clarity. Some bridges aren't meant to be repaired. Some exits are permanent by design. I framed the handwritten letter he sent, the one where he forgave me. It hangs in the garage, a reminder not of him, but of how easily self-awareness can be replaced by entitlement when someone refuses accountability. I kept the house, I kept the car, I kept my dignity. He kept nothing. And that's not revenge, that's math. 5 years is a long time to waste, but 50 would have been unforgivable. Here's the lesson I learned the hard way. When someone shows you who they are at 7:45 in the morning, in full HD, believe them. And always, always keep the receipts. Thank you to everyone who's shared their own stories, offered support, or recognized pieces of themselves in mine. If this resonated with you, if you've ever questioned your instincts or been told you were overreacting, know this, you weren't. Clarity is not cruelty, and choosing yourself is not the same as destroying someone else. Sometimes it's just finally stepping out of the way and letting the truth do what it does best. If you found this story meaningful, feel free to share it, leave a comment, and subscribe for more real stories about boundaries, betrayal, and rebuilding from the inside out.